Hello everyone, my name is Chirag Patil and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, we will understand what is pgvector, right? Which is an extension of PostgreSQL to store vectors in the database, right? So if you are creating any application, you are having one kind of database, right? So let's say if you are using Postgres database and you want to store vectors also in that, there pgvector comes into the picture, right? So you can activate this pgvector extension and you can store your vectors into the database, right? So there are multiple vector databases are there like ChromaDB, MarcoDB, Pinecones are there, right? But if you are using Postgres as your backend, right? And if you add this extension, you can manage everything at your one place, right? And these vectors can be useful at multiple levels. Like you can build RAG system, right? And second thing, if you want a contextual search in your database, then you can use this pgvector extension and store the embeddings into the database and extract the relevant information which are contextually correct, right? So let's understand these pgvectors, few of the features. So first of all, we can store our vectors with our rest of the database, right? Where our tables and all the data are stored, we can add our vectors are there. The second thing, we can use nearest neighbor search and we can store data into like single precision, half precision, binary and sparse vectors are also supported by this pgvector. And we can use L2 distance, inner product, cosine distance, L1 distance, Hamming distance and Jaccard distance, right? So there are multiple distance algorithms are also there which we can use and utilize to search, right? And as we know, the Postgres clients are also in multiple languages, right? So we can use in any language it. And plus, as it is the extension of Postgres database, so it support ACID properties, right? Like atomicity, consistency, isolation, right? So let's implement it and check it out how it is working, right? So first of all, we will use Docker to run it, okay? So let's install it first. So first of all, we will use the Docker image. So here we will find the Docker image of it. Yes, so here we can see we need to pull this pgvector slash pgvector pg16, right? So this image will basically install the Postgres database as well with the pgvector extension, right? So let's start. So first of all, let's install this. Okay. It will take few seconds. Then we will also install a pgAdmin as well there, so we can visualize our database, right? So it is the admin service of PG database, basically PostgreSQL. Okay, so we can see Docker PS. Sorry, it would be Docker images, right? So we have now pgvector images. So let's install first it, and then we will install pgAdmin also there, right? So here I had written some commands which we will use to run this pgvector with Postgres database, right? So let's create one volume there. So this volume we can store our data at the persistent level, right, in our disk as well. So next time if we run our Docker container, so there would be a data would be stored in our system, right? So let's create one volume which is pgvector data. So if we see docker volume ls, we will find this pgvector data, right? Second step, let's run this. So it is very similar if you run a Postgres database because it is the Postgres image with pgvector extension, right? So if you see here, we are passing just name which is pgvector container. We are passing a Postgres password which is password. Username will be a Postgres here, and we are defining the port which is 5432, and here we are assigning the volume as well, right? So pgvector dash data will store the information whatever is in this file, right? Postgres search data, and this is our image name. So let's run this command, and we are running it in a daemon mode. Let's run. Okay, so if you see, so we have one image which is running pgvector container, right? So to visualize this PostgreSQL, let's install pgAdmin, right? For pgAdmin, we will use this Docker image, which is dpatch/pgAdmin4, right? So let's first clear this and install that. And here also I had written some commands which will be used for that as well. So we had pulled the image and now we will run the image. It is same as which we had run pgvector. We are providing the name like pgAdmin container. We are providing the port like it will work at run at localhost 5050, and then we are passing the email and password. Password will be basically simple password string, and this email will be user@domain.com. You can use any email and password whichever you like. Okay. Now let's this image as well. Let's paste this and run. Okay, so it is also running. Let's see. Yes, so here we can see there are two images are running. First is pgvector container and second is pgAdmin container, right? So now let's go and check at the 5050 port, right? So here we can see the pgAdmin is running at port 5050, right? So let's run and login, which we had passed here, right? If you see here, we had provided an email and the password, right? So email will be user@domain.com and password is simple password string. So let's say this is password and login, right? Okay, so now here we need to connect to the server, which is our pgvector container, right? So let's provide the name, let's say vector database. Okay, and connection would be here. So here we need to pass the IP address of that container. To check that, we will use this command. Their localhost will be not work. We need to pass this IP address, right? So let's see what is the IP address for that container, right? Sorry, let's see. So it is 172.17.0.2. So let's pass this there, and username will be Postgres because we haven't specified while we are running this pgvector container, right? And password will be simple password string. Let's save. So it is connected, right? So here we can see our vector database is connected. And now if you see, we need to create one database, right? So let's say vector.db. Okay, so I'm just providing the name vector.db to this database, right? Okay, so now if you see here, after installing, we need to enable our extension for the vector, right? So let's enable that here. Let's run. Okay, so query written successfully in 52 seconds. So we are able to now enable the extension in our Postgres database, right? Okay, so now let's go to the code and just implement some code which we can use for creating the embeddings, right? So here, let's say, so for creating embeddings, I will use sentence transformer. You can use any library or any model from Hugging Face, sentence transformer, or OpenAI embeddings are there, right? So let's, for simplicity, let's use this sentence transformer, right? So I'm copying the code from here. Okay, so let's load this model. Okay, so for sentences, to check, I'm just using this corpus for our dummy testing purpose, right? So let's say corpus is here, and we can use embeddings will be model.encode. We will pass corpus, right? Okay, so let's see what is the embedding size here. Embeddings.shape, it's 384, right? We have 9 vectors of 384. So now let's go here and check how to create a table with the vector, right? So if you see here, there is a query like create table, and we are just passing the embedding. This is the column name, and we are passing the type vector of 3. 3 is basically a dimension. In our case, it would be 384, right? So let's copy and run it here. Let's say we are just passing embeddings and it would be 384. Let's recheck first. Yes, 384, right? Let's run this query. Okay. So if you see here in the schema, there is a table which is items and it contains two columns which is ID and embeddings, right? But we want one column extra which is text, in which we will store the text related to this embedding, right? So let's create column which would be text and it will be type of text, right? Let's save. So now we have three columns in our database, in our table, which is items. First is ID, embeddings and text, right? So now let's connect our database. So for connecting, I will use psychopg2 library, right? Psychopg2. Let's import. Now we have our embeddings and text as well, right? So we need to add this into our database. So let's say connection is equal to psychopg2.connect. It will require few parameters. Let's say database will be our vector DB and user will be simple Postgres, password will be password, let's say host will be, let's say 127.0.0.1, which is basically local host, and port will be 5432, right? So let's connect. Okay, invalid connection to the database. Okay, so this password mistake, let's rerun. Invalid DSN, database is equal to vector DB, user is Postgres. Let's see, the database name is correct, right? Okay, so it is vector database, not the vector DB. No, it is vector DB, right? So vector DB is there, name is correct. Programming error, invalid DSN, invalid connection, option database. Okay, the spelling mistake is there, the database. Okay, so now we are connected. Let's create the cursor. Cursor will be connection dot cursor. The rest thing will be same as you are using the Postgres database, right? So now let's say we have connection. Okay, so now let's write the insert query using which we will insert our embeddings and text, right? So if you see here, there are insert query, right? Like it is inserting embeddings, but we want to insert text and embeddings together, right? So let's just copy this error, this query, and we will edit this. So let's say cursor.execute. Okay, so this should be in the string. So now we need to add the text as well, right? So let's say text and embeddings and values would be, we need to modify the query, right? So let's say %s, %s, and let's pass the embeddings, right? Let's say text and embeddings. Okay, so text and embeddings. Okay, so now we need to find text and embeddings, right? So let's say for text and embedding, we are using zip of these embeddings and this corpus, right? So let's say corpus comma embeddings, right? So let me write corpus embeddings, it should be text embeddings in zip, right? Okay, so I'm using for loop here. There should be a efficient way as well, but for simplicity I'm using this for loop to add these 9 text and related embeddings into our items table, right? So now let's run this. Okay, so corpus is not defined. Okay, so I think I had restarted it, so I need to run it again. So let's say import. I need to create embeddings as well. So let it be. So this is corpus, these are the embeddings. Okay, so now we have our embeddings. Now let's run this. Okay, so can't add the type numpy array. Okay, so now let's say to list. Let's convert this into the list. Okay, so now we are inserting text and embeddings into that. So let's commit the connection, so it will save in our database. So let's see whether it is added or not. So if you go to the table and let's say items, view all rows. Okay, yeah, so if you see here, okay, so if you see here, we had added embeddings and text as well, right? So for embeddings, or let's say for the text, a man is eating food, we are receiving these embeddings, right? Same for the 9 sentences, right? So I think it is inserted twice, so there are redundant data. Okay, so let's ignore for as of now. So if you see here, a man eating food till this, there are twice entry, okay, or double entry. Okay, so we can ignore it currently and we can search our relevant database, right? So let's say I need to find, let me write correct, like cursor dot execute. So for selecting, if you see here, if you want to find the embeddings by L2 distance, we can use this query, right? So let's copy this, which is select star from items, and we are ordered by embeddings, and this is basically saying a L2 distance between this provided embedding and our embedding column, right? And we will return top 5. So let's say cursor dot execute. Let me copy paste. Okay, so let's say I just want 2, right? And here we need to pass our embedding, right? So let's say I'm using app string. Okay, let's say f, and here I will find query embedding. Okay, so let me define query embedding as well. Query embedding, let's say currently empty. Okay, so we need to create the embedding for that. Okay, so here if I say a man is eating food, a man is eating piece of bread, right? So let's say I am querying this. Okay, simple. We can write new sentence as well, but let's utilize that. So let's say query embeddings is equal to embeddings of 0 dot to list. Okay, and I'm just passing this query embedding here. So now let's check. Okay, so now the query is executed. So let's say result is equal to cursor dot fetch out, and if we see the result, okay, so we found the man is eating food, which is exactly same copy in the database, right? So basically we have a double entry for each text, so we receive this. So if I pass here, let's say I need 4, then we will find the next sentence is a man is eating a piece of bread, right? So which is very similar to man is eating food. That's why we found these 2, right? So you can ignore this currently, the redundant data, but these 2 are fetched perfectly, right? So you can use this data to perform the RAG kind of thing, retrieval augmented generation, or you can search contextually on your database, right? If you had store embeddings related to text, right? And the same thing you can run here as well. Let me remove it and let's say query tool. So you can write here as well. So let's say I want to insert, so I will use the same query here, right? Let's say paste, insert into embeddings, and let's say I want to pass the text as well, right? So basically I can copy embeddings from here as well. So let me print query embed, and this will be passed here in the string format, right? And the text, I am just passing the text for the testing purpose. Let's say test, so we can check whether it's entered or not, right? So let's run, execute the query. Query is executed, and if we see, let's say view all rows, so at the last we have this, right, the test. So similarly you can update and edit your vectors and text in the Postgres database, right, with your existing database. So this is all about the Postgres database. If you have any queries related to this pgvector, you can ask in the comment section. We can discuss there. If you like my video, please press the like button and subscribe my channel. Thank you.